Taiwan's Han Kuang exercises enter day 2. We look at how the military plans to protect its fighter jets if they come under attack.
I'm Rick Glowett here in southern Taiwan with a report on how Taiwan is practicing protecting critical infrastructure as part of its largest nationwide annual war games.
I'm in Tainan with a report on how the city is preparing for civil defenses.
Plus, a boom in invasive bird populations has Taiwan ecologists worried. Hello and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Eric Gao. The annual Han Kuang exercise has entered its second day here in Taiwan. The combat readiness drills are the largest ever staged by the island nation, and come as tensions with China continue to rise. This year's military exercises are all about protecting the country's infrastructure. In a moment, we'll be taking you to Kaoshiung, where Rick Glowett takes a look at how the country's forces would protect a major natural gas terminal. After that, Bing Wang will be reporting from Tainan, where Premier Tsai has been observing the city's civil defense drills. But we begin our coverage here in the capital, Taipei, where Jaime Ocon looks at ways the military is working to protect the island from potential attack.
Taiwanese fighter jets are getting ready to leave their home base. For the past 2 weeks, pilots across the country have been training for Taiwan's largest annual military drills, the Han Kuang exercises, by flying back and forth across the main island. It's part of the military's plan to protect as many assets like fighter jets as possible in the event of an attack, and it starts with these pilots.
Planning is extremely important. You can't just expect people to be able to perform without proper training or planning. And I think that's what we should be focusing on, what Taiwan's armed forces should be focusing on in this upcoming exercise.
Taiwan's military was scheduled to use Taidong's Fengnian Airport, a civilian airfield, to practice how to land cargo planes and F-16s on Tuesday. But those drills were canceled due to weather concerns from nearby Typhoon Doksuri. The exercises would have practiced a scenario where, in order to protect aircraft, Taiwan would pull back its planes from western bases close to China and redeploy them to the east coast. In the event of a war, this would help Taiwan preserve its fighter planes, but analysts argue that it's only part of the solution.
You know, if a damaged plane lands there, well, do you have the repair parts? Do you have fuel, ammunition, that kind of thing already pre-positioned? Short of that, it's great to have a wider set of places to land in and to deploy from, but it's not going to complicate China's strategy unless you can have all those pre-positioned stockpiles.
China has ramped up its military presence and operations around Taiwan, and there are concerns that Beijing could be ready to launch an attack as early as 2027. While there's no sign of an imminent attack, Taiwan has doubled down on more mobile systems and hardware that has a greater chance of surviving, things like vehicle-mounted missiles and anti-tank weapons. This combination of protecting airfields and beefing up its arsenal is not just a display for the Han Kuang exercises, but some analysts say it's also a demonstration for other countries to see just how prepared Taiwan is.
So the most important message to give China is that Taiwan can hold out. The military of Taiwan can defend the island for at least a month, enough time for the United States military to come to Taiwan's aid. So scale does matter to a degree, but some of the focus on defensive assets, dispersal, so it looks like the military can survive, keep on fighting, and create obstacles for the Chinese military.
Military strategists and officials here at Taiwan's Defense Ministry have been constantly changing and adapting the country's security strategy in light of an evolving situation with China. Now, this week's Han Kuang military exercises are a chance for the country to test its response plan to see if they're effective in ensuring the country's security. Andy Shui and Jaime Ocon in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Now, this year's Han Kuang exercises are set to be the most comprehensive in the country's history. But what's actually different this time? Well, to find out, our reporter Jaime Ocon spoke to Raymond Guo, a security analyst with the Rand Corporation.
Are there any major differences in this year's Han Kuang exercises compared to the years before?
I think the fact that they're using civilian airports is a pretty big deal. It demonstrates first off politically that Taiwan is taking this more seriously, right? If you're only focusing on the military and you kind of isolate the preparations for the military, it doesn't really have much an effect on the general population. It also means, therefore, that the general population isn't as engaged in, say, civil defense and preparation. I think also the fact that they're calling up the reservists, again, the same sort of kind of political or foreign policy signal that it's not just the elites or the political leaders, but the general public that's going to have to take part and prepare themselves for Taiwanese defense. So right off the bat, I think that's a big shift right there.
There's been debate over what kind of defensive strategy Taiwan needs, whether it be an asymmetric strategy with more mobile systems or a traditional defense strategy with things like tanks and fighter jets. But what do you think? What do you think Taiwan should pursue in its defensive strategy?
Taiwan needs to do both things, right? It's not just that on the asymmetric side, sure, having all the many small things are really important, as we've seen in Ukraine, for a small force to defeat a conventional invasion. But these sorts of sovereignty challenges, median line crossings, maritime coercion, where you need the symmetric forces of fighter jets or large naval vessels. So unfortunately, Taiwan needs to do both there. And if it's going to concentrate on one, if it's going to focus on the invasion, for example, then it needs to find some way to offset Chinese advantages in the other sort of gray zone symmetric area.
Another thing that Taiwan is focusing on in this year's exercises is air defense. Why is the Defense Ministry emphasizing this, and what is the importance of that?
Well, I mean, air superiority, or at least denying the enemy air superiority, is extremely important to not just the direct military conflict side, but also on the logistics side. Taiwan has to rely upon shipping. And one of the easiest ways for Chinese forces to disrupt that is the use of its rocket forces or its air force. They have the range, they have the speed, they have the capability. So the more that Taiwan is able to deny air superiority to the Chinese forces, the easier it is not just for the military fight, but also for the logistics fight.
That was Raymond Guo from the RAND Corporation speaking to our reporter Jaime Ocon. A major component of this year's drills is protecting the country's critical infrastructure. Rick Lauert reports from Kaoshiung.
Here on the coast of southern Taiwan, the country's military and police are practicing how they would defend a major liquid natural gas terminal. It's part of that national Han Kuang exercises, nationwide drills that practice the country's response to an attack by China. This year's focus, protecting and preserving key infrastructure.
在每一次的预演，也让我们协同作战更加纯熟。相信未来有一天状况发生，我们一定能够以最快速、最有效的协同合作，展现全民总力运用的连战效能。
Taiwanese live under constant threat of invasion from neighbouring China, which says Taiwan is part of its territory and has not ruled out taking it by force. This year, the Han Kuang exercises have taken on extra significance. Beijing has recently increased what is known as its grey zone warfare against the island nation, cyber attacks, misinformation, and sending military boats and planes around Taiwan. Taiwan has also been watching Russia's invasion of Ukraine, finding parallels in a country fighting off a much larger foe. Russia's targeting of Ukrainian infrastructure, such as power plants, has made Taiwan rethink its defence strategies. With Taiwan importing most of its fuel for electricity production, that's been highlighted as a potential defence weak spot. The exercises this week are a stress test of Taiwan's ability to defend itself under pressure. And keeping the country running by protecting infrastructure like this will be crucial in the event of a war. Justin Wu, Sam Hui and Rick Lauert in Kaohsiung for TaiwanPlus.
Now we head to Tainan, where they were holding major civil defense exercises. Bing Wang has this report.
Here in Taiwan's southern city of Tainan, the government has organized a civil defense training. Tainan is one of the largest cities in Taiwan, home to around 2 million people. It follows many other large cities in Taiwan, where mobilizing civilians has become a key element in the country's defense and disaster strategy. This took place alongside the Han Kuang exercises, the largest military drills in the country. Premier Chen Jianren was also in attendance. President Tsai was supposed to attend, but canceled after testing positive for COVID-19.
因为很多事情是要有准备，但是不希望发生。那如果没有准备，发生了就惨了。
More than 1,000 civilians and hundreds of vehicles and helicopters and drones participated in the training. These exercises also prepare for sudden disasters such as earthquakes, typhoons, and fires, all in hopes of protecting Taiwan. John Su and Bing Wang in Tainan for TaiwanPlus.
All 9 soldiers who were injured in an accidental explosion in northern Taiwan on Monday are now in stable condition. That's according to a statement by the Defense Ministry. Out of the 9, 2 were seriously injured. One of them arrived at hospital without vital signs, but was successfully revived. Another suffered severe burns and damage to his left arm. After they were stabilized, both were moved to Taipei hospitals for further treatment. On Tuesday, Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen visited the soldiers in hospital. The accident happened on Monday afternoon outside the port city of Keelung when a mortar round exploded during inspections. They're still investigating what caused that blast. The ministry has yet to say whether it was related to this week's military exercises. Shortly after that visit, President Tsai was confirmed as having COVID. Her spokesperson says the president is experiencing mild symptoms but has been forced to cancel her public appearances. Tsai developed symptoms at lunchtime shortly after she visited the wounded soldiers, and as being mentioned earlier, Tsai had been due to watch civil defense drills in the south of the country. She also had plans to visit the Central Weather Bureau as it prepares for Typhoon Doksuri. Both trips have been canceled, and there's no word yet on when the president will return to work. Sea and land warnings are in place for Doksuri now. The storm is not forecast to pass directly over Taiwan, but its outer edge could make landfall in the country's south, causing strong winds and heavy rainfall. Cities and counties are now preparing for the oncoming typhoon, including suspending some flights. Farmers have also begun storing fruit and securing their crops. In the past, Taiwan faced frequent seasonal typhoons, but none have reached its shores in more than 3 years, leading to severe droughts. Taiwan is a haven for hundreds of species of birds, including 29 found nowhere else on Earth. But the growth of invasive bird life has got ecologists concerned. Sash Butler reports.
This is a light-vented bulbul, and along with the warbling white-eye and Eurasian tree sparrow, they're the most common birds in Taiwan cities. But they're facing more and more competition from invasive species like this, the common myna.
它们食物可以适应的种类或许比较弹性比较大。 所以你可以它可以吃虫，也可以吃各式各样东西，对，然后它们又适应各种人为的一些缝隙死角，所以它们其实适应的会不错。
Stats show that from 2011 to 2021, the 3 fastest-growing bird populations were all invasive species. Numbers of white-rumped shama grew over 9,000%, followed by chestnut-tailed starlings by over 5,000%, and Asian glossy starlings by 4,400%. Birds compete for food and nesting space. Researchers don't know exactly how invasive birds, like certain mynas, are affecting native species.
它们之间会有一些竞争的作用，但是其实还是没人理解说，到底是不是八哥让麻雀变少？这其实是还需要有待去观察的。
In 2019, authorities began destroying nests of the African sacred ibis, another invasive species. They cut numbers from nearly 20,000 down to a few hundred, but that's tougher to do in Taiwan cities.
因为那个移除的方法其实没有找到的话，我们再着急投入再多经费，其实老实说，那都很像那个石头丢到水里，扑通有一些涟漪，但是我们没有解决问题。
Taiwan's government has banned people from bringing starlings into the country, but so far it's powerless to stop existing populations in the city from breeding. Researchers just have to hope the boom in non-native birds doesn't come at the cost of local wildlife. Clive Wang and Stash Butler for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break.
One of Taiwan's most famous religious rites is taking place in Pingtung, where thousands of people are coming to bless this boat.
我75岁，现在还在创业中。
我是用生命在做事。
然后要做的话，我就永不放弃。
我们想要成为世界的品牌，站在世界的舞台。
一定要新的挑战。
我们自己肯定自己的价值。
透过我们的文化创意，从台湾这个点画出去。
你是 MIT 的？
我是 Made in Taiwan。
Taiwanese Boss, every Wednesday 8:10 p.m. on TaiwanPlus.
For more stories from the Tech Hub, Taiwan, and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. The U.S. says North Korea's recent missile launch is a threat to the international community. Here's Washington's statement.
We certainly condemn the DPRK's ballistic missile launches. These launches are in violation of multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions and pose a threat to the DPRK's neighbors and the international community. We remain committed to a diplomatic approach to the DPRK and call on the DPRK to engage in dialogue.
North Korea test-fired 2 ballistic missiles late on Monday, just hours after a U.S. nuclear-capable submarine docked in South Korea. It's the second U.S. nuclear sub to stop in the country in recent days, after another submarine made the first visit in 40 years. North Korea has fired over 30 missiles so far this year. Satellite imagery shows a Chinese-funded naval base in Cambodia is nearly complete. The images were released by U.S. company Black Sky, which has been monitoring the project since last year. The construction is a revamp of an existing naval base in the Gulf of Thailand. Images reveal the addition of a pier big enough to support an aircraft carrier. The project has been criticized by Western leaders as bolstering Chinese naval power. Both China and Cambodia have denied that the People's Liberation Army would have access to this base. To find out more about the implication of Cambodia's new naval base and the country's ties with China, Harold Hughes spoke to Pooja Bhatt, a maritime security expert in New Delhi.
What can we see from these released satellite images of the Ream Naval Base?
The satellite images that are out, they clearly show that there has been considerable amount of work that has been done within Cambodian Ream base. It's just not a shipping yard that is there, but there are dry docks, there are warehousing facilities, there are hangars, and most importantly, the shipping base is entire corridor is more than 350 meters long, which shows that even an aircraft carrier, general aircraft carriers, the length of those carriers are generally 300 plus minus, few meters. And you have to also consider the fact that Cambodia does not even have an aircraft carrier. Why does it require it?
This is China's second confirmed naval base abroad. What does this mean for the expansion of the Chinese Navy?
China is eyeing towards becoming a blue water navy, and for that it needs those kind of bases to replenish itself during its long stay in the high seas. So that requires another level of cooperation with other countries, and China is aiming. So many other countries are also aiming towards that.
How is Cambodia's relationship with the rest of the region affected by its growing relationship with China?
In terms of the security aspects, it has large implications, not just for regional security, but global security as well. Just recently, the CCP, the Cambodian party, the ruling party, won the election, landslide election again. And it is in news that, they are supported by Chinese government. So the kind of, leanings that Southeast Asian countries are now having is also a very important point to notice. This actually breaks up the ASEAN centrality on certain issues, not having bases and all, whereas certain countries do not want those kind of bases.
That was Harold Hughes speaking with Pooja Bhatt, author and maritime security expert in New Delhi. Officials in the southern city of Kaoshiung have fined a temple for air pollution and litter over a parade that it organized. That procession had made its way along the streets of Kaoshiung's Zuoying district. Participants set off a large number of firecrackers, which caused a thick blanket of smoke to cover the area. Nearby residents complained about the smoke and trash left over from the event. The city handed out nearly 30 fines for violating environmental rules. Temple officials have apologized for the mess and pledged to help clean it up. Meanwhile, a different temple in southern Taiwan has unveiled the centerpiece for a triennial religious festival. It's a boat that's being prepared for a famous ceremony, one that has so much meaning for local people that they say it's even more important than the Lunar New Year. Ing Huang has the details.
A magic final touch added to this boat fit for a king, and the craft and its hand-painted figures are believed to come to life. This is the beginning of the King Boat Festival, a famous religious ceremony held by Donglong Temple in the southern county of Pingtung. Every 3 years, temple workers build a new boat to be blessed by the deity Wen Wangye. who is known for protecting people who work out at sea. The boat and accompanying ceremony are believed to help ward off diseases. To people living in a small seaside town, this event is a big deal.
有的伫外口讲吼，过年无转来无要紧，东港3年一个月的祭典，若出外去的学子学弟，伊拢会足欢喜，要转来参加这祭典的仪式。这是东港人一个信仰。
The ceremony follows ancient traditions, but it's not just for men in robes. Big crowds are drawn to one part in particular. Candies and red envelopes filled with money are thrown to the crowd as an auspicious sign, symbolizing the throwing of a fishing net. Now the boat has been brought to life, it will stay in the temple for worship, for now. Here at the front is the King Boat's captain, Wang Chuangong. This figure looks like an old-fashioned Taiwanese official. You can see he's holding a tobacco pipe, which used to represent people with status. Next year, this whole boat is going up in flames, and so will Wang Chuangong. The boat may be destined to go up in flames, but that doesn't mean they made it cheaply. It cost more than $380,000 US to make. And it's not just the exterior that is carefully crafted. On board are all the facilities needed for its human and animal passengers, even if they are not real. It's a tradition that's been passed down through generations' families, with temple members handling the roles on from father to son.
那我从小就跟着王爷到现在，40几年了。
But this hereditary nature also poses a threat to the future of the King Boat Festival. Although there's never a shortage of spectators, there are fewer young people willing to take on roles in the temple.
所以这坐船师傅咧，即阵的年龄拢伫咧60、70岁啊。这以后要搁传承咧，都有一个困难度。有一寡少年的嘛，有要搁传承袂晓，唔知。
Although the King Boat Festival is only held every 3 years, preparations being 2 years out. And for the people who live in this harbor town, it's far more than just a religious event. It's an opportunity to renew a sense of community, one that could be lost to history without a new generation to take on the mantle. Kamashi, Ing-wen, and Eugene Huang for TaiwanPlus.
A marine conservation project off Taiwan's eastern coast is bearing fruit, with fishing band and volunteers clearing the seas of old discarded nets. John Van Trieste reports.
The seas off the eastern county of Hualien are teeming with life again. The county government has set aside 2 zones as protected areas where fishing is banned all year round. With the help of volunteers like this diver, they've cleared away old discarded fishing nets. County officials are also keeping a closer eye out for illegal fishing.
成立巡守队，做3班制的一个巡护，从事这个非法渔捞的作业的话，我们巡守队同仁都会通报我们相关的单位去进行做查报取缔的动作。
The result has been a noticeable increase in the number of various kinds of fish, as well as lobsters and abalone that are valuable as seafood.
野鸟的生态已经回来了，其实这个9孔现在都已经逐渐的成长了，至少有2寸以上的那个规格了。
By creating these zones for fish, crustaceans, and mollusks to reproduce in peace, the county hopes to preserve its culture of living off the ocean, but in a more sustainable way. John Su and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Post-COVID, tourists are flocking back to Japan, and one restaurant in Tokyo is thrilling its visitors with a unique combination of food and wrestling. Sandy Chi has more.
These big guys are ready for battle, and also for lunch. This is not an official sumo tournament, or basho, as they are called in Japanese. Instead, it's part of a unique dining experience at this restaurant in central Tokyo, Japan. Koto Otori, that's his ring name, was a professional sumo wrestler for 20 years, living a highly regimented lifestyle. Now retired aged 40, he works here to teach others about this traditional style of wrestling.
相撲を皆さんに知ってもらいたいなというのはありましたね。今みたいにこういうのはちょっとイメージしなかったんですけども、海外の人にも、日本の人にも相撲をよく思ってもらいたいなと思いました。
And he's not alone. All those who perform at the restaurant are former sumo wrestlers. And after the face-off against each other during the show, they welcome customers to join in too.
The best thing is the sumo wrestlers themselves are so personable and really take the time to make it such a funny, enjoyable experience. And I like that it's, kind of gives an opportunity to everyone to be a part of the show as well.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
私たちが現役の時に経験した辛い思い出とか伝統文化トラディショナルとかそういうのをしっかりお客さんに伝えようっていうふうに普段は努力してます。でもお相撲さんの時は全然遊んだりできなかったんでやっぱりそこでみんなサラリーをもらってとにかく楽しいハッピーな生活を送ってほしいなと思ってみんな過ごしてます。
The sumo show has been a massive hit. Since the restaurant opened in November last year, reservations for the exhibition bouts have been fully booked. But once they get a booking, the only thing visitors need to wrestle with is what to choose from the menu. Isan Pan and Sanny Chi for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally, here's something I've never seen before. Hemingway lookalikes parading down the streets with imitation bulls in Florida, all part of the annual Hemingway Days. I'm Eric Gao. Take care and see you next time.